Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a bright, beautiful Monday morning. We have weathered the storm that was Raphael, and we are here today in the semifinals of the Jamaica Civil Service Association's High Schools Debate Competition 2024. We have 4 schools with us that will be debating today. And these 4 schools stand almost at the zenith of this competition. They would have faced off against 26 other schools and would have secured their spot to be crowned either the fourth or third place winners. And then, of course, they'll be debating in the grand finals, which will be happening next week, Monday, November 18th, in person to figure out who will be the crown champions. 2 schools who have done extraordinarily well in this competition and are fighting to secure that coveted spot in next week Monday's match are the Montego Bay High School for girls and the Manning's School. Now, these teams would have done quite a spectacular job so far. Yes, defeating teams left and right. We saw Montego Bay High School defeating Ocho Rios, the third place winners in zone B, the very first round. And then we saw the teams Manning Schools facing off, and defeating Cornwall College, the second place team in last year's competition. And of course, Montego Bay High School is going to be fighting to ensure that that crown remains with the Montego Bay High School for girls. They are indeed the 2023 champions, but I know that Manning School has something to say about that. Now, after the first zones, we saw the Montego Bay High School for girls battle it out against the Queen School in a rich, robust debate, one of the highest scoring debates in this competition. And the Montego Bay High School for girls sent home the Queen School. And in that same vein, we saw Manning School face off against Hampton School in the national round 2, and they succeeded over the Hampton School. Now, recently, we saw them advance into the quarterfinals match where Manning School sent home the Queen School, who, because of their exceptional performance against Montego Bay High School, though they couldn't advance, were allotted that wildcard slot. But Manning School wouldn't have it, and Manning School indeed triumphed over Queens to secure their spot in the semifinals. Not to be outdone, the Montego Bay High School for girls defeated Mayday High School and secured their place in this semifinals. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, it has been a journey for these 2 teams. The reigning champions, Montego Bay High School for girls, and the up-and-coming, hopefully usurpers of that title, Manning's School. I am Ravon Thomas Matthews, and I must admit I have been having a wonderful time in this competition, as you can probably tell. I serve as one of the chief adjudicators for this competition, and with me is founder, executive director, multiple degree holder, masters, this and that. But for the purposes of this competition, my co-chief adjudicator, Mr. Jermaine Barrett, who will ask to introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Ravon. Boy, it sounds like I've been missing out on quite a lot, except for the instances when I come on to deliver my greetings. I've missed all the matches, but I'm happy to be here today to judge these Titanic teams. Of course, you heard my name. I'm Jermaine Barrett, and I'm delighted to have the privilege this morning to chair both of these semifinal matches.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jermaine Barrett. And of course, joining Mr. Barrett, our chief adjudicator for this round, will be myself, Ravon, and of course, Mr. Matthew Douglas. Matthew, introduce yourself for me.
Yes, good morning, everyone. This is Matthew Douglas, as was just stated. I must say I am equally excited as my other fellow adjudicators have stated to be adjudicating this round. It sounds to me like you had quite an interesting exchange of ideas in previous rounds, and I look forward to what's to come. So please go on ahead and put on a good show.
Thank you, Matthew. And I am expecting a good show indeed, because the motion for this round reads, this House believes that the public sector should prioritize hiring tertiary graduates with no relevant experience for entry-level jobs. This House believes that the public sector should prioritize hiring tertiary graduates with no relevant experience for entry-level jobs. In other words, if there are two candidates, one with experience and one without experience for an entry-level job, the public sector should prioritize the hiring of the individual who doesn't have the relevant experience. That's an interesting motion. Now, you've heard enough from me. I will now turn over to Mr. Jermaine Barrett, our chief adjudicator for this round, who will lead us out.
Thank you very much, Ravon. And the teams would have just heard the motions, I'm sure, I'm sure they're quite familiar with it, having prepped their arguments. Just to bring to the attention of our viewing audience the rules of the competition in terms of speaking time and so forth. So in this match, there are 3 speakers on either team, and each speaker has a different amount of time allotted to them within which to present their arguments. So the first speaker will present for 7 minutes, the second speaker 6 minutes, then we'll enter into a period of cross-questioning. The debate will then conclude with the 5-minute presentation from the reply speakers on either team. All right, so with that said, Ravon, I'm going to ask you to be our timekeeper. The first and last minutes of each speech for the first 2 speakers on each team are protected, and that will be indicated by way, I imagine, of the chat here on Zoom. Our teams, are there any questions? Are you ready?
Ready.
Right, good. Well, we are ready as adjudicators to hear the scintillating arguments. So at this time, I call upon the first speaker from Montego Bay High School for Girls to present their opening speech. Here.
To make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. This is the Vision 2030 statement that drives Jamaica's future. Do we just make concepts and ideas of policies without meaning them? Can we achieve this vision without prioritizing tertiary graduates? The answer to both these questions are a resounding no. Distinguished adjudicators, worthy opponents, members of the audience, a pleasant afternoon to you all. Today, the proposition holds strongly in favor of the move, which states, this House believes that the public sector should prioritize hiring tertiary graduates with no relevant experience for entry-level jobs. Before I go any further, firstly, let me be clear what we mean by tertiary graduates with no relevant experience. These are individuals who have just completed post-secondary education are stepping into the workforce without prior professional experience in their field of study. By prioritizing them, we mean by making them the preferred choice for entry-level roles, although this does not exclude other candidates entirely. And most importantly, according to a plethora of sources, including Indeed.com, which is the #1 job site in the world, the very definition of entry-level jobs are those jobs that require minimal education, training, and experience. It is literally by definition designed for college graduates fresh out of school and ready to take on the world. So then, Mr. Speaker, to agree with the opposition goes against the very meaning of entry level. To make Jamaica a place of choice to live and work, we must prioritize graduates for entry-level jobs, especially within the public sector. As the first proposition speaker, I'm going to discuss the social factors of prioritizing tertiary graduates for public sector entry-level jobs. My second speaker will speak on the economic factors, and my third speaker will summarize our key points and reinforce why we are resolute in our affirmative stance. Let's begin with an eye-opening statistic. Jamaica has been ranked second out of 177 countries in 2022 on the Brain Drain Index, according to globaleconomy.com. In recent years, Jamaica has been losing between 15,000 and 18,000 people annually. This is what that statistic means due to emigration, many of whom are nurses, teachers, doctors, and IT specialists, lack of career opportunities. That is what it all boils down to. The government can be held responsible for this drain of our educated professionals. Mr. Speaker, the common Jamaican saying goes, every mickle make a muckle. So here's a small step towards widespread change. Prioritize hiring tertiary graduates for public sector entry-level jobs. Believe it or not, it is the bare minimum. By hiring inexperienced graduates, the public sector creates pathways for career advancement, helping to prevent brain drain by encouraging young professionals to remain in Jamaica and contribute to the economy. The Jamaica that we want people to live in, to work in, to raise families in, and to do business in must be able to retain educated youth within the local economy, strengthening our workforce and investing in our country's future. Lack of experience cannot be a deterrent, as entry level is designed to gain experience rather than those already with experience. Mr. Speaker, if we don't invest in our people, other nations will. The person with an impressive bachelor's or master's degree but no experience that is not prioritized by us will be prioritized by other countries, notably other competitors in the global markets. And this is what limits our growth as a developing country. If the opposition seeks to argue that our policy will result in a reduction of service quality, let me stop you from now, because thousands upon thousands of graduates are migrating every single year, and that is what is completely eradicating service quality in this country, not our policy for prioritizing graduates. Moreover, the Jamaican Gleaner in a recent publication mentioned that 40% of 6,000 UE graduates remain unemployed after a year of graduation. This information comes to us from the university's career and placement unit. Imagine after years of strive towards a degree, you are caught between a wall and a hard place. Either work for little or nothing outside of your preferred field, or migrate to a new country and deal with the harsh, cold realities in an unfamiliar environment with unfamiliar people. Here's where the government comes in. Prioritizing tertiary graduates for entry-level roles addresses the critical issue of youth unemployment in Jamaica, providing job opportunities for educated young people who struggle to find jobs due to a lack of experience. We can combat youth unemployment by opening up opportunities for our young people to showcase their prowess. Mr. Speaker, if the opposition wants entry-level applicants to have, let's say, 3 to 5 years of experience, they should be fighting a fight against universities that do not incorporate experience in their curriculum, not against prioritizing tertiary graduates. Let me introduce to you Susan. We're all Susan in one way or another. Let's say 5 years of high school. Then she goes directly to pursue a 4-year business degree. She works part-time in the university's library, and during summer, she does housekeeping on the work and travel program in the United States to make ends meet. Susan doesn't have the luxury of taking an unpaid internship or limited pay internships in Jamaica. Members of the opposition, can you fit into Susan's schedule 1 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years of relevant experience? Her housekeeping is not considered relevant because it's not directly related to corporate roles, yet she still has to do it for income. When Susan graduates and applies for entry-level roles like junior analyst and marketing assistant, she's faced with job listings that demand relevant experience. The issue is clear. You need experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience. Are we setting our young people up for success, or are we locking them out of the job market with impossible expectations? Mr. Speaker, let me get out of fiction. Here are some recent public sector listings on ministry websites. The role of procurement officer, classified as level 5 in government pay bands, asks for 2 to 3 years of relevant experience, even though it's an entry-level administrative role. Next, administrative assistant in various ministries in Jamaica, require at least 2 years of relevant experience. One more, training and development officer. This is classified as an entry-level officer role. This position asks for a minimum of 3 to 5 years of experience. This is now, and this is real, this is recent. Mind you, the policy we put forward does not devalue internships or volunteer experience that some graduates may hold. Rather, it acknowledges that not all graduates have equal opportunities to such opportunities in our society today. The status quo today, it is favorable connections and reasonably well-off backgrounds that often readily hold the relevant experience that businesses demand, that the public sector demands. But guess what? We can't ignore the inexperience. The basic task of entry level can be done for inexperienced graduates. We can clearly see the disconnect of entry level and the expectations set by employers. The examples illustrate the difficulty by recent graduates. And Mr. Speaker, if they are not prioritized for entry-level jobs, potential is left unused, and now they migrate or work outside their preferred field, or even worse, use education for a life of crime. In conclusion, to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do businesses, we must create opportunities for our young people. The public sector responsibility is their social responsibility to citizens, not driving towards supernormal profits. So then, join the proposition in agreement with the mood for a Jamaica where we prioritize tertiary graduates for entry-level roles. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam First Proposition Speaker from Montego Bay High School. We now call upon the first speaker from the Manning School representing the opposition side to present their case. Hear, hear. Again, calling the first opposition speaker from the Manning School.
Before I start, just want to make it known that I'm not feeling so well. So if I cough or
Okay.
so, yes.
Thank you. That is perfectly okay. Hoping you feel better soon.
Thank you. A meritocracy should aim to remove barriers, not reinforce them by substituting one form of privilege with another. Thomas Sowell, PhD in economics. Mr. Speaker, esteemed judges of the panel, fellow teammates, and debaters, a pleasant afternoon. The motion states this House believes that the public sector should prioritize hiring tertiary graduates with no relevant experience for entry-level jobs. We, the opposition, strongly disagree on this. Before we delve into the heart of the topic, we acknowledge the government's definitions. While this is so, allow me to define some key terms that will provide a better understanding of the matter. The public sector refers to government bodies, state-owned institutions, and public services. Should prioritize in the context of this debate means must designate preferential treatment or hiring to tertiary graduates over other groups such as high school graduates, vocational, technical, training individuals without formal higher education. Entry-level jobs are those at the bottom of a profession that does not require advanced training or experience, meaning lower salaries and fewer responsibilities than more senior or higher qualified roles. Mr. Speaker, we are not saying tertiary graduates should be excluded. We are simply saying that they should not and cannot be prioritized for entry-level jobs, as this is unfair and would minimize and marginalize many, such as the high school graduates, vocational, technical training individuals, and individuals with low levels of education. Instead, we, the opposition, plead that the focus should be on a balanced entry-level job market equally available to individuals regardless of educational background. Now, to offer a rebuttal to the proposition, experience arguments, entry-level jobs are general and often not related to the academic or licensing needs of tertiary graduates. Therefore, prioritizing them for these roles is inefficient as they already have other avenues to gain the experience required for their career advancement. Now, with that being said, allow me to ferment my substantives. I, the opposition leader, will inform and highlight how prioritizing tertiary graduates will undermine meritocracy, misalign job qualifications, and lead to labor distortions and put other groups who depend on entry-level jobs at a severe disadvantage. My well-performed second speaker will furthermore ferment these points and bring to the platter projected high school unemployment rates, government investment in heart. Additionally, my third speaker will summarize our case. Mr. Speaker, I find it quite absurd, the proposal of the proposition to prioritize tertiary graduates in entry-level jobs, as it contradicts and doesn't align with the very goal of tertiary education. Tertiary education is to prepare individuals for specialized skilled roles that require higher level knowledge and expertise. They occupy a credential such as bachelor's degree that will and can allow them to get a job to gain substantial, sustainable income to reduce poverty. However, prioritizing tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs contradicts this very purpose, as these roles do not fully utilize their advanced skills or education. In Jamaica, pursuing tertiary education comes at a significant financial investment. Tuition at local universities at the University of the West Indies and the University of Technical Jamaica, UTech, for a typical 3 to 4 year degree, this cost can accumulate to roughly 1.5 million Jamaican dollars to 4.8 Jamaican million dollars, not including other expenses such as accommodation, books, and transportation. These additional costs can drive the total even higher, meaning that a tertiary graduate's education often represents a multi-million-dollar investment. Additionally, the Jamaican government has made significant investments in tertiary education to prepare graduates for high-impact roles. A notable example is the Jamaican $2.5 billion scholarship program focused on STEM education, which funds 1,250 student teachers aiming to create a workforce skilled in science and technology. In addition, the Ministry of Education and Youth has received approximately $365 million in the fiscal year 2022 as a budgetary support for its scholarship programs. Now, Mr. Speaker, looking at this vast majority of investments, both tertiary graduates and the government have put in place for the advancement on the average of the highest yearly earnings on entry-level job workers could earn is only 600,000 to 1,200,000 Jamaican dollars. And compared to their multi-million-dollar fees and all the investments, it really makes me ponder and wonder if the proposition has really lost their marbles. As it is obvious, these investments highlight the goal of positioning tertiary graduates in high-skill, high-income jobs, not low-skill, low-income entry-level roles that would underutilize their expertise. Furthermore, it is imperative to note a market economy thrives on the principle of meritocracy. Individuals are employed and promoted based on their skills, work ethic, and experience rather than the arbitrary criteria such as school background. The proposition would undermine the merit-based system by implementing regulations that privilege tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs. To hire employers based on their degree rather than ability for the role overlooks the high school graduates and other groups. This approach disrupts the employment process, causing inefficiencies in the labor market and causes labor distortions. Prioritizing tertiary graduates in entry-level jobs could create a push effect. This effect would result in high school graduates who rely heavily on entry-level positions being squeezed out of this job market. In Jamaica, where the youth unemployment rate is 13.2%, high school graduates face limited opportunities. Additionally, overloading the workforce with tertiary graduates in entry-level roles can lead to credential inflation, making degrees a baseline requirement for jobs that don't require them. This inflation can result in higher unemployment among non-tertiary graduates, which restricts economic productivity and exacerbates social inequality. Mr. Speaker, if the proposition claims that they are simply trying to quell the unemployment rates for tertiary graduates, we must acknowledge that this is valid. But they must note that the Jamaican government has taken this into account for years and has been continuously investing in our educated youths with initiatives like the Boosting Innovation, Growth and Entrepreneurship Ecosystems program, which was launched in 2020 with an initial investment of $4.97 million and additional funding from the European Union, which provided $8.2 million, which is over Jamaican dollars 1.3 billion in 2021, aimed at improving businesses, processes, integrating technology, and scaling operations. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, the government has been investing in entrepreneurship and innovation by providing grants through the Innovation Grant Fund under the Development Bank of Jamaica. This fund supports innovative Jamaican companies with the grants up to 3.2 billion Jamaican dollars for the development of new products and services that require the talent of our tertiary graduates to fill. The Jamaican government, Mr. Speaker, has also invested heavily in initiatives to match tertiary graduates with jobs suited to their qualifications, such as $20 million Digital and Animation Industries Project and the Global Services Sector Project, which has created thousands of specialized positions in high-value industries like information technology and legal service. According to the United Nations in Jamaica, these initiatives ensure that tertiary graduate skills are utilized in high-demand fields, which not only reduces underemployment, but also fosters large economic growth. On top of that, Mr. Speaker, prioritizing tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs disregards Jamaica's Vision 2030, which emphasizes the development of knowledge-based economy, one that aligns to leverage highly skilled graduates in roles aligned with their training. This approach, Mr. Speaker, better serves the economy as these initiatives underscore the government's commitment to utilizing tertiary graduate skills in specialized roles and decreasing this mismatch
that is
in
time. That is
opposition race.
All right, thank you very much for that speech, opposition leader, rather, first opposition speaker. I now invite the second proposition speaker to present their case in approximately 6 minutes.
Go ahead.
You have emphasized baseless monetary contributions to education, but this is far out of the scope of this debate. You have not proposed a policy where there is a bridge built for the gap between education and employment. Let me set a scene. Imagine a young graduate standing on the threshold of their future, a person brimming with potential, armed with knowledge, and ready to contribute. They're fueled by the dream of making a difference in the place they call home. Yet, time and time again, the door closes in their face to welcome another simply because this person has one thing they do not experience. Should we deny this promising graduate the very experience the opposition seems keen on pushing? This House firmly says no. We must embrace the promise and talent of our tertiary graduates by allowing them entry-level jobs to cultivate dedicated professionals who not only understand the unique needs of our community, but are deeply committed to serving them. Ladies and gentlemen, the esteemed panel of judges and my fellow opponents, a pleasant good morning to you all. Allow me as I stand here in complete agreement that the public sector should prioritize hiring tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs. Firstly, let's acknowledge that prioritizing inexperienced graduates brings substantial long-term economic benefits as it directly cultivates a workforce that can drive future growth and innovation. Let's consider this. A study by the Inter-American Developing Bank found that countries investing in training young professionals see a 4 to 5% increase in GDP growth over time. By giving these graduates opportunities, especially in the public sector, we are not only reducing youth unemployment, but also stimulating economic activities and productivity. With more people working in the public sector, it creates a healthy and balanced loop. More of our youth are legally employed, leading to increased income tax and other taxation from economic activities for the government. This tax can then be used to regulate public sector services and set off any costs associated with hiring tertiary graduates. Furthermore, if we look towards Germany's approach with an apprenticeship and public sector hiring methods, we see that it has led to one of the lowest employment rates in the EU, as well as a productive, highly skilled workforce. When we offer these entry-level jobs to the youth, we will be providing stable jobs and supporting generations to come that will eventually contribute to the economy. Not just in Germany, though. If we look to our neighbors, we can see a 20% increase in public service efficiencies due to the innovative approach brought by young professionals, according to the Caribbean Center of Development Administration. While no specific legislation mandates companies to prioritize hiring recent tertiary graduates, we have to begin to break the status quo. Although laws don't require prioritizing new graduates, Caribbean initiatives like Jamaica's Heart Trust NTA and Trinidad and Tobago's On-the-Job Training Program OJT focuses on creating job opportunities for young graduates. These programs address high youth unemployment by offering practical work experience and bridging the gap between education and employment. While some may argue that prioritizing the inexperienced will lead to the overlook of more qualified candidates, let me reinforce that tertiary graduates are qualified. Let us not diminish the value of a degree. The proposition aims to create a balance by prioritizing recent graduates for entry-level roles specifically, and thereby persons with experience can be opted for middle or senior management roles. We are not exempting experienced persons completely out of the workforce. However, entry level should remain as it is defined to be an entry for young graduates. Secondly, reusing and overexerting talents that have already been in the industry in an expiring quest for relevant experience is restricting innovation and efficiency in our labor force. Hiring inexperienced graduates may appear costly in the short term due to the training and onboarding. However, these costs are strategic investments that yield significant long-term benefits, such as skilled talent pipelines and innovative contributions. And, might I add, this debate is encircled around public sector jobs. The public sector's aim is societal needs, not profit. Businesses in operation under the wing of the public sector should not be apprehensive about hiring our nation's greatest minds just because of minimal training costs. What happens when all the persons with relevant experience are worked out of the system? What is left of our country if we don't introduce new labor, a stagnant nation? Though inexperienced in the field, tertiary graduates are still very much qualified with their bachelor's or master's degree and the intrapersonal skills acquired from attending college or university. Tertiary education costs on average from 1 million JMD dollars up to 10 million when it comes to medicine or law, tuition, and school-related expenses. And the government reaps taxes from these expenses. So then it is only fair and just for the government to invest in our tertiary graduates by opening the door with entry-level work to give our people a start. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, Jamaica's Ministry of Health faced significant challenges in rapidly scaling up its public health response. Youth graduates from the UE and UTech, equipped with recent training training in digital health tools, epidemiology, and data analytics were well positioned to support contact tracing and health data management. However, many of these graduates were overlooked because job listing required 2 to 3 years of experience in public health administration. Countries that embraced hiring recent graduates like Barbados had a 30% faster response time in contact tracing efforts compared to countries that relied solely on experienced but less tech-savvy staff. Hundreds of people were dying and suffering just because we were slow to trace. Or experienced public staff health couldn't understand the technology, and that is just a fact. Therefore, for the sake of economic advancements and a future-ready public sector, I urge you all to support this motion. Prioritizing these young, eager minds in the public sector is not only an investment in individuals, but a lasting investment in the success of our society. The proposition versus momentarily.
Thank you very much, second proposition speaker, for that contribution. I now call upon the second opposition speaker to do likewise. Hear, hear.
Is everyone hearing me?
Yes, you're being heard.
Amazing. All right, so before I proceed with my speech, let me highlight one thing. Not because tertiary graduates have a degree make them any more qualified than a higher graduate and a high school student, providing new labor. New labor is being provided from the HART/NSTA by providing thousands of work for high school graduates within the sector. And the entry-level jobs do not require any new perspective or so forth because it's the same job, repetitive, such as being at the front desk of a hotel. What new perspective or new labor would you want for something like that? Proceeding. Honorable Chair, esteemed adjudicators, worthy opponents, and distinguished audience, we in the opposition stand firmly against the motion that the public sector should prioritize hiring tertiary graduates with no relevant experience for entry-level jobs. Mr. Speaker, while the opposition do recognize the value of hiring tertiary graduates and the value they bring to the workforce, prioritizing them for entry-level jobs in the public sector is not only impractical, but also counterproductive as it ignores the fundamental purpose of these roles, which is to provide access and opportunity to individuals at the start of their career, often without the need of advanced education. Our stance is straightforward, Mr. Speaker. Entry-level jobs are designed for those with basic qualification and accessible pathways that should be not allocated to graduates with advanced degrees. Entry-level jobs by design are stepping stones into the workforce that requires minimal education and offers opportunities to develop basic skills like roles like clerk, administrative assistant, and data entry personnel, just to name a few. According to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, these positions are of the public sector typically offer a salary ranging from 500,000 to 700,000 Jamaican dollars per year, which levels that aligns well with the qualification and expectations of high school graduates or those with vocational certification. Mr. Speaker, on a weekly basis, their earnings range from 9,615 Jamaican dollars to 13,462 Jamaican dollars. That is below or not so far from the minimum wage threshold. A 2023 study of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security confirms that these jobs predominantly attract candidates with high school diplomas or basic certifications, individuals whose career path naturally aligns with opportunities of entry-level roles provides. Mr. Speaker, prioritizing tertiary graduates for these roles will not only disregard the demographic, but also disrupt the job market by creating an overqualified workforce for positions that neither require nor benefit from their higher education. Mr. Speaker, would it really be wise of the proposition
Points of
or
information.
even fair to not accepted to funnel trained professionals with tertiary degrees into positions that fail to make use of their specialized skills? Mr. Speaker, prioritizing tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs in Jamaica public sector would undeniably worsen the unemployment rate among non-tertiary graduates. Currently, youth with only high school diploma face an unemployment rate of 12.4%, significantly higher than the 5.2% of tertiary graduates, according to the Statistical Institute in 2023. Mr. Speaker, by redirecting entry-level roles, about 60% of which are occupied by high school and higher graduates, of which occupy of 86,400 are held by these students. Take a look at this. If tertiary graduates were to be prioritized and these high school students would lose access to half of their positions. Mr. Speaker, around 43,200 high school diploma holders could be displaced. Adding to these displaced high school graduates and the existing pool of graduates of 59,520, which is a projected of total unemployment rate among high school students of 102,720. This is a projected 21.4% increase, significantly limiting employment opportunities and economic mobility for non-tertiary graduates. Mr. Speaker, the quality proposition stands that tertiary students are more competent and bring more to the table. Take a look at the 2022 UNESCO report of the Hart/NCA that reveals that the government investment of over 12 billion Jamaican dollars from levy have yielded workforce that is competent in entry-level roles as tertiary graduates. Hart graduates have achieved an employment rate of nearly 80% within a year, with over 3,000 placed annually by hard sectors such as ICT, data, entry, tourism, and hospitality. Mr. Speaker, these outcomes alone demonstrate Hart Vocational Training Alliance with the public sector, producing job-ready candidates capable of immediately contributing to the job government operations and mandates. Therefore, they are the ones that should be prioritized and continuously prioritized. Given this readiness and sector-specific training, prioritizing tertiary for these roles is not only
Points of
unwise,
information.
Mr. Speaker, not accepted, but unnecessary, as it would disregard the purpose of the Hart/NSTA investment, simultaneously undervaluing the high education level of tertiary graduates whose talents could be utilized in more meaningful roles that benefit our society and economy. Mr. Speaker, we wholeheartedly support the employment of tertiary graduates within the public sector. Placing them in low-entry jobs undermines both their potential and the country's economic goal. Rather than funneling them into roles that do not require advanced skills, the government should guide these graduates into positions that truly demands their expertise, such as data analysis, project management, policy advising, and specialized administrative roles. These roles not only align with the training and qualification gained through tertiary education, but also enhance productivity within the public sector. Filling low entry roles with tertiary graduates instead of allocating them to roles that maximizes their education disregards this investment, Mr. Speaker, limiting the economic impact and resulting in insufficiencies across the public sector. Prioritizing high school and vocational graduates for entry-level roles respects the intended design of these jobs and allow tertiary graduates to serve in capacities that strengthen Jamaica's workforce and economy. This motion, Mr. Speaker, failed to recognize this critical distinction. In conclusion, the proposition to properize tertiary graduates in entry-level sectors role is fundamentally flawed, disregarding the effectiveness of Hart/NSTA graduates, high school graduates, and the Jamaica government targeted investment in vocational training. The Hart program has proven that graduates are well prepared, highly employable, and capable of filling entry-level jobs provided by the public sector, with employment rate of nearly 80% shortly after graduation. This approach not only meets the immediate workforce demand, but also prepares tertiary graduates for roles that match their specific education.
Time. Thank you. Thank you very much. That is time.
Thank you very much for those remarks, second opposition speaker. We now enter the exciting cross-question section where, beginning with the opposition team, we will invite a slate of questions posed to the proposition team. Each question is limited to 20 seconds. Each response from the opposing team is limited to 45 seconds. And Ravon, I just trust that you'll be able to monitor the timings. And we ask that you put 5 minutes on the clock so that we can have the questions posed by Mannings to Montego Bay High School for Girls. Mannings, you may begin now with your first question.
All right. I was going to ask the first one. Somebody else the second. So, how does prioritizing tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs, which are designed for minimal skill requirements, benefit the public sector when it risks overqualification and higher turnover rates?
We do not believe it will result in higher turnover rates. We emphasize the definition of entry-level jobs, which is to get your foot into the door, to enter the workforce market. The persons coming in with their tertiary education need a part in the system where they enter. So they enter with these entry level and then work their way up. So in turn, they get the education and experience because that is what no public sector listings are asking for.
Given that high school graduates and vocationally trained individuals are actively seeking these roles, can you explain how it's fair or effective to displace them for tertiary graduates who may soon leave these positions for more advanced roles?
So what you're proposing is that we lock in hard trainees and those into these small entry-level roles. They want advancement too, and if we push for those for hard trainees in those roles,
Okay, so it's imperative for us to understand that tertiary individuals possess a greater knowledge. Part is mainly a vocational schools. Very rarely they actually train people to serve in the public sector.
Okay, all right. I have a thing for that. But nonetheless, are you suggesting that non-tertiary graduates who rely on these positions as an entry-level point should be deprived of these opportunities because they lack a degree? How would this align with the principles of equal opportunity?
we are not ostracizing other candidates, and I said and emphasized that in my speech. We want priority to be given to tertiary graduates because what you are proposing is that we undermine the investment that goes into a degree. These persons cannot be locked out of the workforce because these are our educated professionals, educated for the role. And even though Hart and other various vocational institutions have it, the tertiary have invested more into the education and they can enter. There is a balance that can be maintained. There are jobs that can be kept with Hart trainees and jobs for tertiary within the entry level. We cannot lock out any of them because then it will result in unemployment for both of them.
Would you find it fit, or wouldn't it be more beneficial rather, to have tertiary graduates in positions that fully utilize their skills and education rather than placing them roles where their potential is underutilized? And given the fact that you mentioned about experience, which would have already
Right.
highlighted that experience is not gained through entry-level jobs, how would that priority
Yes,
work?
entry experience is gained through entry level jobs. That is the whole basis of entry level jobs. It is to gain experience and it's not for those who already have experience. Persons, tertiary graduates, cannot be pushed into middle management or senior management because they are fresh out of high school. They have the education requirements already. So what they need is the experience requirement, and they get that through entry level jobs. So now they have the education and the experience, then they can move on to maximize their potential. But we cannot just put in tertiary graduates in upper management. We must facilitate their entry with entry level jobs.
How would you mitigate the unemployment rates that will inevitably increase when we prioritize tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs? What will happen to the other persons within the labor force who desperately need these jobs?
Could you repeat, please?
How do you plan on mitigating the unemployment rates which will inevitably occur if we were to prioritize tertiary graduates? How will you plan to mitigate those that are not who need these jobs are fully able to maximize within the public sector workforce?
We want to open the workforce in one where there's a balance between who gets what. So the ones that need it, the unemployment rate, there are jobs. There are thousands of entry-level jobs within the public sector. Our prerogative is not to completely ostracize or shut out other persons than the tertiary graduates.
However, we're prioritizing tertiary because when we look at the statistics as presented by the first and second speaker, we realize that a lot of the immigration issues that Jamaica faces comes from our tertiary individuals.
And that is
Okay.
time.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both teams for that exchange. And we continue the questions and answers, this time with the questions coming from Montego Bay High School for Girls posed to the Manning School. You may begin Montego Bay High School.
All right. You have belittled and overlooked the investment and grunt work that comes with a degree. These qualified persons are not incompetent. They have degree and a transferable skill. If they are not prioritized, could you please give and highlight at least 2 reasons why a person should then pursue tertiary education? Shouldn't they just stop at high school?
Sorry, I'm gonna ask you to repeat the question overall. There was a breakup right there. I'm so sorry. Just repeat the question for me, please.
No problem at all. So I've said you have belittled and overlooked the investment and grunt work that comes with a degree. These qualified persons, they're not incompetent. They have degree and the transferable soft skills. If they're not prioritized, could you please highlight at least two reasons why a person should pursue tertiary education? Should they just stop at high school?
Entry-level jobs were designed for high school students, or persons with a high school diploma. To acquire a degree, yes, there is need for experience, but entry-level jobs do not provide that experience. If I'm going to study law or engineering, no entry-level job out there will provide me with the necessary experience that will allow me to receive the perquisites and the papers that I would need to move on with what I need in life. So overall, entry-level jobs do not overall provide experience for tertiary graduates to get their degrees. Instead, it is designed and made for high school graduates, high school diplomas, and persons who have graduated from Hart to move over into the workforce where their skills does not fully meet the tertiary level, but is still sufficient enough to contribute to the global or the country's economy and all.
Before I move on, I disagree wholeheartedly. And entry level, there are entry level for
Thank you.
engineering.
No, you should ask a question. Don't
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So if we fail to provide young graduates with entry-level opportunities, aren't we contributing to a cycle of poverty and a shrinking middle class? How do you justify this approach in terms of social equity?
No, what we're saying, we're not saying that they should not be hired. We're just simply saying they not should be prioritized. Because if we're prioritizing them, we start giving them first preference, and when we start giving them first preference, we marginalize the other groups that desperately need these jobs and who these jobs are designed for. Overall, what we're saying, the experience level that the tertiary graduates would need cannot come from entry-level jobs. Experience is a must, but internship, fellowship, as provided by the University of the West Indies, provide these graduates, tertiary graduates, with the experience that they need to contribute to the real world. And as we have said about unemployment and so forth, the Jamaican government is continuously investing to provide jobs with these youths. How much millions of US dollars? 8 million from the EU, 2 million US dollars from the Jamaican government to invest in the finding work for these graduates. So that means their talents can be used meaningfully and not in unskilled work where they feel undervalued and underutilized.
There are not enough internships or volunteer opportunities in the world for all graduates to hold at least 1 to 3 years or 3 to 5 years, which the government listings are asking for. So what do you propose we do for graduates without experience? Where do we put those tertiary graduates with no relevant experience? You've highlighted high school graduates, you've highlighted Hart trainees. What do we say? What message do we send to our inexperienced tertiary graduates?
There's not only internship, there's also fellowship and volunteer opportunities where these tertiary graduates can receive the experience that they need. So it's not only internship. There are other ways, and as my grandmother would say, there's multiple ways to hang a dog without using a rope. They don't only need to join internship, they can also join fellowship and volunteer service as opportunities, as I would have highlighted, that completely align with the field of study. Instead of joining entry-level jobs that completely undermine their value and place them in a workforce where they will be unmotivated because their paycheck does not reflect the study that they would have done. How much millions of dollars they must spend for a degree to only acquire $500,000 to $700,000 a year? That is just simply preposterous. Doesn't align with the tertiary level that they would have needed. And instead, what the government should be doing is continuously investing in tertiary opportunities so their world can be utilized in the right space and not be sent to a lower ending job where the government.
All right. So by not prioritizing our tertiary graduates, you are potentially creating a future for a shortage of experienced workers if we don't give fresh graduates the opportunity to build their skills. So how will tertiary graduates build their skill if you propose that there are some bigger roles that they should fulfill before they reach those bigger roles? How do you propose that they build their skill?
The internship, the fellowship, and the volunteer opportunities. Yes, that's as we have highlighted before. There's multiple
All
ways to
right.
handle that without using a rope, and I'm just answering the question. They will gain their skills from these roles. Placing them in entry level jobs will not carry the experience or give them the experience that they need overall. There will be
All
no
right.
experience,
Some
especially in roles
And
No,
that,
that require
we have
certain
45 seconds.
prerequisites.
all right, and that is time. That is
Okay.
time.
All right. Thank you very much to both teams for that rather intriguing exchange, questions and answers. All right, we're now going to pause for 1 minute to allow you to gather your thoughts and ideas ahead of the reply speeches. At the end of the 1 minute pause, we'll resume with the reply speeches speaker rather from Team Manning's school. That's opposition, and then we will conclude the debate overall with the 5 minute reply presentation from the proposition team, Montego Bay High School for Girls. Your 1 minute begins now. All right, I think your 1 minute has expired, so we are ready to resume. At this time, I call upon the reply speaker from Montego Bay Heights, rather Manning School, team opposition, to present your 5 minute speech. Hear, hear. Again, just inviting the Manning School. Yes, your reply speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hearing you.
Okay, perfect. Honorable Speaker, esteemed adjudicators, worthy opponents, and distinguished audience, as third Speaker of the opposition, my role is to reinforce our stance and address the flaws in the government's case, and most importantly, solidify on why the opposition has without a doubt won this debate. However, before I get into my speech, let me address some of the points made by the proposition. First of all, we, the opposition, are not saying that tertiary students should not be provided with a job. If they are out of school, fresh out of school, and cannot be employed, then of course they should be. However, we cannot prioritize them over the persons that these entry-level jobs were meant to help, which is why we have to highlight the keyword prioritize. The proposition also basically disregarding the notion of internship opportunities, and they're basically saying it's not sufficient when we disagree, as due to the level of education that tertiary students possess, they won't need access to entry-level jobs unless they absolutely need it, and it does not effectively maximize on their potential while helping others up the ladder. And this has been supported by statistics given by the opposition. And we are also not suggesting that we lock out tertiary students. However, we are simply saying that we need to redirect them to a path that better suits them and their level of education, while ensuring those who are yet to attain such is still secure. Now, my colleagues have clearly laid out the core purpose of entry-level jobs, as it is to provide opportunities for those entering the workforce, particularly high school and vocational graduates. Prioritizing tertiary graduates for these roles would exclude their crucial demographic, worsening unemployment rates among non-degree holders, and ultimately destabilizing our job market. Our second speaker also illustrated that placing tertiary graduates in entry-level roles leads to overqualification, dissatisfaction, and high turnover. Studies show that overqualified employees are 50% more likely to leave these positions within a year. This means constant rehiring and training, stretching our public sector resources unnecessarily, Mr. Speaker. The government claims that tertiary students bring more value, but this ignores the specific skills those roles require, which are often suited to high school and vocational schools. Let us not overlook the practical implications here. High school graduates and vocational trainees are highly capable of providing or fulfilling entry-level roles. They have been trained for them, and these positions are in line with their qualifications. To prioritize tertiary graduates for such jobs is both impractical and unfair. It provides non-degree holders from accessing jobs they are prepared for and funnels graduates into roles they do not require or utilize their advanced skills for. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the opposition has demonstrated that prioritizing tertiary graduates for entry-level jobs disrupts our workforce, undermines the purpose of these roles, and simply neglects the needs of non-degree holders. Entry-level jobs should offer a fair chance to all qualified candidates, particularly those without education. We, the opposition, has provided you with clear substantives as to why the stance of the proposition is fundamentally flawed, and have even presented you with more practical solutions to the issue at hand. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is why the opposition has unquestionably won today's debate. The opposition rests.
Thank you very much for that speech. That was the reply speaker from Team Opposition, the Manning School. I now call upon the reply speaker from the Montego Bay High School for Girls to conclude the team's case and ultimately the debate.
High school graduates or HEART trainees cannot fulfill essential roles within public health, education, or other public sector industries. Your argument is therefore flawed and irrelevant to the moot. Honorable judges, esteemed opponents, and respected audience, today we confront an undeniable truth. In a world where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, where opportunity seems reserved only for those who already have it, we must ask ourselves, what happens to our youth? What happens to the countless young Jamaicans who, despite earning their degrees and showing their dedication, find every door to a stable future slammed shut simply because they lack experience? This isn't just about jobs. It's about fairness, hope, and the chance to break free from a cycle that traps talented young people in the lives of struggle and uncertainty. As we wrap up this debate, it is important to return to the heart of the matter. This debate is about prioritizing tertiary graduates without experience for entry-level jobs in the public sector, not high school graduates. Yet, time and time again, the opposition has attempted to shift the focus, exaggerating the challenges faced by high school graduates. But let's be clear, the issue at hand is about giving young tertiary graduates a fair chance to break into the workforce and gain the experience they need to grow and contribute meaningfully to society. By constantly bringing up high school graduates, the opposition is distracting from the real issue, the lack of opportunity for tertiary graduates who have invested in their education and are now facing an employment system that continually shuts them down due to their lack of work experience. While we acknowledge that the proposal to prioritize tertiary graduates for entry-level public sector jobs does not marginalize other groups, it is critical to emphasize why prioritizing tertiary graduates remain the most strategic choice for the future of our public sector. The goal of our argument is not to undermine the value of high school graduates or HEART participants, but to recognize the unique qualifications and specialized specialized skills that tertiary graduates bring to the table. These individuals have undergone advanced academic training that equips them with critical thinking, problem solving, and analytical abilities, skills that are essential for navigating the complexities of public sector roles. While vocational training through heart and high school education is undeniably important, it often falls short of the broad-based expertise needed for strategic and leadership positions in government. Tertiary graduates are well versed in public administration, law, policy analysis, and economics, among other areas, which are directly aligned with the demands of many entry-level public sector positions. By prioritizing them, we are not disregarding other groups, but we are ensuring that we have well-equipped, highly skilled workforce ready to take on the critical issues that affect our country. In fact, prioritizing tertiary graduates will create a pipeline of individuals who can grow, innovate, and eventually fill more senior roles within the public sector, fostering long-term stability and progress in governance. By focusing on tertiary graduates for entry-level roles, we ensure that these individuals who have invested years in acquiring specialized knowledge are not left to languish without opportunities. We're employing the most qualified individuals to lead, which in turn will enhance the overall quality of public service and bring about meaningful change in our society. This debate addresses a fundamental issue faced by tertiary students, the lack of opportunities for young, educated individuals to enter the workforce. The real question is not whether to offer high school graduates or hard participants a chance, but why deny the tertiary graduates, those who have invested years of study and effort, the opportunity to build careers in the very sector that will shape Jamaica's future. To ignore their potential is to waste the investment made in their education and ultimately to hinder the growth and modernization of our country. Let's be clear, we're not talking about just any jobs. These are public sector positions, the very roles that shape the future of our country. These are the jobs that influence national policy, drive economic development, and ensure public accountability. To fill them with individuals who lack the advanced skills and education necessary for such crucial responsibilities is a grave mistake that will cost the nation in the long run. The opposition claims a balanced approach is necessary, but we've seen this approach has not led to any real measurable success. It has merely maintained a system where experienced individuals continue to take up entry-level positions, leaving young graduates in the cold. And this is where we must draw the line. Tertiary graduates deserve their fair shot at public sector jobs, and that starts with giving them priority in entry-level hiring. The proposition team has consistently highlighted several economic arguments that underscore why prioritizing tertiary graduates for entry-level public sector jobs is essential for the long run, such as we have emphasized the economic efficiency of having highly educated individuals in government role, tertiary graduates having receiving specialized training in fields like public administration make decisions better. Furthermore, we've pointed out that investing in highly educated individuals for entry-level public sector jobs has significant long-term economic benefits. Tertiary graduates are more likely to bring innovative solutions and economic challenges, promoting sustainability development and ensuring public policy. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that presentation, and thanks to all the debaters who did very well in this exchange. We, the adjudicators, we're going to now leave to deliberate, and we will return shortly with the results. Ravon, I believe we... good.
Mannings, are you still there?
Hi.
Yeah, we're talking to you. Hi.
Missions on the way. We're just waiting for the signal. All right.
Am I being seen and heard?
Yes, indeed.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to both teams for a bit of exchange and engagement that challenged us as adjudicators in the deliberation. Very well done. Very well done. Because when we are challenged, it means that the contest was of a high quality. We felt that it was. We felt that there are three big issues in the debate that I will comment on prior to announcing the overall results. The first thing that challenged us as an adjudication panel was determining the admissibility of the model put forward by Team Manning's school, which is to say that the prioritization should be of students coming out of the high school system, high school graduates. And they hinge that on the basis that, at least by way of a contention or sort of a claim, that high school graduates, or rather high school diploma, is that which is minimally required. And to require more, such as, for example, requiring tertiary education, university, college degrees, and so forth, is a bit excessive, a bit unnecessary, right? They say that to us. We felt that Montego Bay High School was rather slow in engaging with that particular setup. We discussed it among ourselves, and we ultimately determined that the context and the model put forward by Manning School was in fact fair. At least the majority of the panel felt it was. And so in as much as it is fair, we believed that there needed to have been more engagement, more direct challenge of that model of high school graduates being what is required for entry-level positions than that which presented itself in the debate by Montego Bay High School. We felt that at times we had to be sort of pulling together disparate strands of ideas to establish a bit of an argument, particularly in responding to that. So what are the disparate strands? We got from Montego Bay High School the idea, at least a claim, that said, well, we get some kinds of attributes, some kind of capacities with having a university or tertiary level degree that we don't have as much at the high school level. And it is these skills, the skills of problem solving and so forth, that are needed on average within the public bureaucracy, within the private sector. Yes, and we felt that that was, at least at the level of it being a claim, we felt that it was as reasonably articulated as was the claim from Manning School that said, well, we only need high school graduation or high school certificates or high school certification rather. And anything in addition to that is a little bit too much, more than that which is reasonably required. From the vantage point of Manning's, at least we get a bit of statistics that points to a high school diploma being what is minimally required. We would have liked to appreciate more within the Jamaican context, though, that is in fact the case. But at least we got some, attempt at an allusion of a context that bears the claim out that Manning's felt was a more reasonable description as to what is required of an entry-level job within the public sector. Okay. And so I just want to close this particular part by just highlighting the importance of just engagement. And it's a challenge that we have sometimes with pre-prepared debates, where the engagement tends to be limited on the big questions or the big issues, in as much as teams are fairly locked into their scripted speeches. So again, Montego Bay High School, we felt that you needed to do a bit more to engage frontally beyond that little response that I just referenced. The response in the cross-questioning section, where Manning's asked the question, well, why would you then be displacing reasonably qualified high school graduates from jobs because of the prioritization of tertiary education and tertiary qualifications. To which Montego Bay High School responds is, well, they're not displacing them. They would allow for them to apply for vacancies at the entry level for which that qualification is required. Well, even if that is the case, and yes, Montego Bay High School, good attempt at a response, but not a fulsome enough response, because we don't know if you're telling us or intending to tell us that those jobs are in the minority to a significant extent, such that even if it is that we give all of those jobs that objectively require only a high school diploma, if we allow entry to those jobs only available, we make it such that only persons with high school diplomas gain entry to those jobs. Those constitute such a minuscule proportion of entry-level jobs within the public sector that it becomes negligible, particularly when we're talking about a debate having to do with prioritizing, the particular role that the particular qualification that suits one for employment at that level, right? So we need to hear more description and more analysis behind that in order to wrestle that particular contention in favor of Montego Bay High School. The second issue that was significant to us is a question about what exactly is the problem that we're solving for. And we felt that the problem, as pointed out by Montego Bay High School, are really threefold. One, people are leaving Jamaica in droves. There's a mass exodus, there's emigration to a large extent, and Montego Bay High School tells us that their solution solves or treats with this to an adequate extent. And we felt that that was done reasonably well. The second challenge, also posited by Montego Bay High School, is that, well, young people need jobs, and the current status quo requires work experience prior to you getting the job, coupled with university or tertiary level qualification, is too much, and it displaces young persons effectively who are reasonably and objectively qualified to hold these positions. And then the third idea coming to us also from Montego Bay High School, which is, what exactly is the purpose of the public sector? Is it about striving for raw efficiency and productivity? They say to us, one, productivity isn't going to be harmed. At least they respond to us to that potential contestation preemptively by saying, well, no, it won't be harmed. Efficiency won't be harmed. But then one must also appreciate the larger function of the public sector, and that it is more than those productivity and efficiency goals. It is also largely about serving and providing a social good. And this social good is met in as much as it is treating with the problems outlined hitherto, the brain drain and the fact that youth unemployment exists to too large an extent. Now, assuming that these are the problems that we're solving for, let's see how it is that the contributions from Manning School treats with those. Manning School tells us that, yes, the youth unemployment, particularly youth at the high school level, the elimination of young persons coming out of high school from these jobs is a problem, which sort of sounds a lot like the problem characterized by Montego Bay High School, young persons not getting jobs. The second point is people, the brain drain and so forth. Although Manning's High School doesn't engage with it frontally, we felt that like there is a way in which that potentially will be treated with to some extent or the other, right? I mean, of course, not definitively saying that that was the case, because again, Manning's did not clearly outline that, yes, their model treats adequately with the matter of the mass exodus of labor, of skilled labor from the Jamaican workforce, right? On this second question, the second clash about, what exactly is the public sector for, Manning's tells us that the public sector at the entry level is geared towards providing effectively job experience and grafting persons into becoming more qualified through experiential learning, on-the-job learning. Montego Bay High School seems to concede to that, and that is why they would forego the requirement of coming into these jobs with job experience. But it's in as much as Mannings tells us that yes, this is the case, and at the high school level, the qualifications gained are what are adequate or what suits one for employment at the entry-level jobs. By and large, we felt that that particular clash also goes to the Manning School, in as much as they've proven to us. I'm challenged using the word prove, but they've articulated more extensively than does Montego Bay High School that the setting the requirement for entry-level positions at the high school level is what is minimally required, and to require higher level, higher competencies, higher training through tertiary level education is a little bit more than is necessary. And then the third question that weighs heavily in this debate is this question about, well, what exactly are we aiming to achieve here? We're aiming to achieve a public bureaucracy and a public service that does a particular good job of solving for, well, sorry, the solving for is the second clash, the second issue, second question rather. I think those are the two major questions, and I leave it there for now. I think by now it becomes clear that in our minds, and this is, ladies and gentlemen, a split decision, because on the first question as to whether or not Manning's model is a reasonable model that could have been anticipated, the majority of the panel felt that it was. We felt that as well, that in as much as that is admitted by the majority of the panel as being reasonable, then the other benefits that are claimed by Manning's also flows fairly logically therefrom. I think a part of the challenge, before I disclose the winner of this match, part of the challenge for us is that many of the arguments just were not sufficiently warranted. And by one, we're talking about just thoroughly explained and provided with examples. So for example, we get 3 examples of entry-level jobs from the Manning's, from Montego Bay High School. And we felt that came, well, we saw that came rather from the first proposition speaker, but we wanted to have a clearer articulation as to what typically characterizes the requirements for entry-level jobs, certainly, particularly from Montego Bay High School. Right. We also felt that the fact that in the cross-questioning section, Manning's was quite consistent in probing the question about, well, excluding high school students who are deserving of of employment by virtue of the required qualifications for entry-level positions within the public sector. We felt that should have given greater insight to Montego Bay High School that yes, this is a big issue that needed some comprehensive and exhaustive response. Unfortunately, we didn't get that enough. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this semifinals match in the JCSA High Schools Debate Competition for 2024 is the Manning School. All right. Thank you very much, Manning Schools. Congratulations and well done, Montego Bay High School. You know, you are the defending champions, but alas, your journey ends here. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you as well.
Good afternoon. Will we be hearing the scores?
I think Ravon has those scores. So Ravon, if you just disclose those scores.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so the scores for this round, we'll see Montego Bay High School for girls ending on 271 points to Manning School's 276 points. And the best debater from this match comes to us from the opposing team, that is the second speaker from Manning School. Congratulations to Manning School for advancing to the grand finals of this competition. Well fought to the team Montego Bay High School for girls who will not be retaining their championship title but are still going to be fighting to see if they can indeed secure that third place position. Now, speaking of grand finals and third place positions, we have two teams who will be vying not for the third place position, but for the championship title. Indeed, the champion of this competition will be the inaugural championship upon Montego Bay High School for girls elimination from that title. And the two teams that will be vying to assume that title from Manning School are the Glenmuir High School and Campion College. Two teams coming out of different zones in the competition. Yes, and we have both teams with us right now, the Glenmuir High School and Campion College. We want to invite teams to put their speaker positions and their names in the chat. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you where these two teams are coming from. In the very first round in Zone A, we saw Campion College battle it out against Holy Childhood High School to secure that win. They then, and in that very same round, we saw the team Glenmuir High School facing off against Clarendon College High School. Yes, in that particular zone. And here's a fun bit of information for you. The team Campion College would have tied with Montego Bay High School for girls in that particular round, the zonal round, ending on 276 points, along with the Montego Bay High School for girls. They were at the top of that particular zone. We then moved on to round 2, the national round, where we saw Campion College face off against Excelsior High School, with Campion College coming out on top, and Glenmuir High faced off against York Castle High School. Yeah, and of course, Glenmuir High School would have eliminated York Castle High, right? And then another fun tidbit of information in that particular round, the national round 2, we saw Campion College ending that round on 273 points, and the team Glenmuir High School ending that round on 273 points. So in the national rounds, both teams performed, equally in that particular contestation. Ladies and gentlemen, you see what we're shaping up to have right here. We then moved on, of course, to the quarterfinal round, in which Campion College eliminated St. Diego High School, and Glenmuir High School advanced to this semifinal round after that contestation with Immaculate Conception High School. Immaculate Conception, of course, not showing up for that match. Glenmuir High School advancing automatically. And so we want to credit Glenmuir High School for that. But ladies and gentlemen, what we see here is a history of these two teams coming no less than in the top 5 on the leaderboard amongst all 26 teams that entered into this competition. This indeed will be no small match. We have a big deal, a mega deal, as President Tesha Clark Griffiths would put it. And the motion that they're going to be debating is, this House believes that senior civil servants, such as permanent secretaries, should be political appointees. Of course, we have Glenmuir High School in proposition, Campion College in opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I am Ravon Thomas Matthews, and I'll be serving as one of the wing adjudicators. And at this point in time, I'll turn over to Mr. Jermaine Barrett, the chief adjudicator, the chair adjudicator for this round, to introduce the rest of his panel and to take us right along.
All right, thank you very much, Ravon. And boy, I tell you, just as was the case with the last match, and now again, I'm feeling a sense of disappointment not having been a part of the competition earlier on, except for the instances when I would come on and deliver greetings. But yes, again, my name is Jermaine Barrett, owner and executive director of Jade. And with me adjudicating this match will be Ravon Thomas Matthew. You just heard him speak. And I think we're joined by Kalise Vassel. Kalise, are you here? I think
I am.
Yeah, good. So Kalise Vassel is our second wing adjudicator. And of note, Kalise is the programs manager of Jade. All right. Yes, we're hearing you, Kalise. We've just heard you. All right, so we have Glenmuir High School versus Campion College. You would have heard the motion. And of course, the rules of the competition requires that teams observe their speaking at the time allocations. The first speaker will be speaking for 7 minutes, the second speaker 6 minutes, and we enter a period of cross question. And when we get to that point, we'll explain in greater detail how that will work. And then we wrap up the debate with the reply speaker speaking for 5 minutes on each team. Just to note as well, there are periods of protected time, and Ravon will be our timekeeper for this match. So you will have the first minute and the last minute of your speeches. If you're the first one, either of the first two speakers, that will be protected minutes, protected from points of information. So after the first minute, but before the last minute, points of information from your opposing team are perfectly allowed. All right, teams, do you have any questions? All right, no questions. All right, so let's get started. Let us now invite the first proposition speaker to open the debate. Here, from Glenmuir High School.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay. Honorable Speaker, members of the House, respected adjudicators, and my fellow Jamaicans, let us set the scene. It's 2022, and we're watching the movie Top Gun Maverick. For those who don't know, it's a story about a veteran pilot who has trained a group of qualified pilots to fly an almost impossible mission. The stakes are extremely high. The movie is heart-pounding and full of thrilling excitement. As the movie nears its climax, you watch this movie scene where the protagonist selects from the main group his final team of pilots, who, based on his experience, he can trust to complete the task and return home. Everyone has trained for this moment, only the best are chosen. This scene, ladies and gentlemen, is the subject of our discourse this afternoon. Although we are in a theater, watching pilots as their lives hang in the balance, we look with our mind motion. Because dust settles, that's what's really being decided here. Today we stand in support of the move. This House believes that senior civil servants, such as permanent secretaries, should be political appointees. Now, according to the Oxford Dictionary, a senior civil servant is an individual in a hierarchy in public service role who plays a central part in implementing government policies. In this context, permanent secretaries in Jamaica act as a critical bridge between the government's policy objectives and their execution. We understand the term political appointee, as defined by the Oxford Dictionary, as a person selected by the government of a country for a particular job.
We seem to be having some connectivity issues. Glenmuir, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
You may have to turn us. Yeah, you may have to turn off your camera to conserve on bandwidth.
Okay. Should I restart?
No, just continue from maybe back up maybe 2 sentences and then continue from there. We've stopped the time.
Okay. Appointee, as defined in the Oxford Dictionary, is a person selected by the government of a country for a particular job or role. So we can this House supports the appointment of individuals in a high-ranking public service role through a selection process undertaken by the government of a country to fill a particular job or role. This statement might seem like an obvious one. You may even say it seemed like the stance of a reasonable interlocutor. Nonetheless, we assert that the alignment of senior civil servants with the administration chosen by the people results in a government where purpose and policy move in unison. Allow me to outline the key points that form the foundation of our compelling position. I will address the reason for the utility of public appointees, their alignment and introduction of new perspectives. My second speaker will highlight political accountability and the support of democratic principles, and my third speaker will bring the position to a complete climax. We believe that senior civil servants should reflect the policy objectives of the democratically elected administration. This does not mean compromising merits. Instead, it's about ensuring that those at the most senior level understand, agree with, and can effectively execute the current government's mandate. Although Jamaica has a version of the current political appointee (PA) process currently in place, according to the Constitution of Jamaica, Section 18, Regulation 17, we propose a reformation of this progress, which requires senior civil servants to be both politically aligned and highly competent. Political appointees are not unique. Less than 1 week ago, the USA voted in their national elections. According to a document published by the Center for Presidential Transition in April 2021, the president alone is responsible for 4,000 political appointments. The political appointment process ensures that senior civil servants share the government's vision for the country, and this benefits the Jamaican polity by streamlining the implementation of government mandates and creating a cohesive force for progress. Not only that, if they are from the private sector, they're able to challenge entrenched institutional norms, revitalize government operations, and preserve the agility of the public service. In addition, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, not accepted at this time, position is that when senior civil servants' priorities don't align with the administration, government effectiveness is undermined. Political appointees are inherently aligned with the government, and this facilitates effectiveness. In addition, when PAs are plugged into their roles, they can align the government functions without interfering with the processes which keep the government running, such as business registry, tax collection, customs processing, and the like. The work of the government keeps progressing, but is redirected behind the leadership of the democratically elected policymakers, or the people pilots. Imagine a scenario where a new government, elected on a platform of economic reform and social change, is impeded by career civil servants who do not fully agree with or even understand these priorities. There may even be passive resistance within the institutions. This is counterproductive and downright irresponsible. Political appointees ensure this does not happen at the leadership level because they act as living, breathing change agents within the government apparatus. Furthermore, because political appointees are publicized, not only is the voting public made aware of the appointee, the performance of the chosen civil servant is linked with the government's stated outcomes or goals. So, the appointee both answers to the government and the public, and this lessens the likelihood of corruption. In addition, according to research published in June 2019 by Ibinger, Veet, and Fromm, they found that politicized civil servants do not act less responsibly than their non-politicized peers. This demonstrates that political appointees are just as responsible as non-political senior servants. Not only this, but the Jamaican Constitution, Section 81, Regulation 17, all senior civil servants must provide regular reports on active personnel within the ministries. These facts further solidifies the proposition's position that the public benefits from having political appointees in senior civil servant positions, as they have dual responsibility to the public and the government. At this moment, I'll pause to accept the point of information from the opposition.
Okay, so why don't senior civil servants in the status quo aren't currently able to align themselves with the government, especially because they're more experienced in actually doing civil service, right?
So we are not saying that they are unable to align themselves, but a person serving these positions for maybe say 5-10 years, they will become stagnant. And stagnation is really the enemy of progress. As a developing country, it's really necessary for us to be able to be innovative and developed. So we are saying the process that is used to select these persons, it is very stringent. These persons are selected based on not just their seniority, but they're selected based on their experience, their tenure, commendations from the outgoing administration, and also any experience that they have outside of the civil service. So basically what we're saying is the persons chosen are basically the most capable persons for the position and will be able to bring new perspectives and more innovation to the entire process. In a system where senior growing positions are assigned based on tenure, there's a tendency for organizations to stagnate and become unwilling to adopt change. Political appointees remedy this risk. Northwestern University highlights this and concurs that politically appointed civil servants are more likely to introduce ideas that align with the government's strategic objectives, helping to modernize operations. Let's be honest, Jamaica's public service could use a little modernity and innovation, Our tax offices still rely on paper documents and standing in long lines. If political appointees are from private sector or even from overseas, they can bring novel approaches and modernize the way things are done. They can also challenge entrenched bureaucracy and make the public sector better for all Jamaicans. We, the proposition, wholeheartedly assert that Jamaica's civil service should allow for political appointments as there's a net benefit to the public when they are in senior positions. We can benefit from improved alignment, accountability, and responsiveness, as well as increased modernization. Jamaicans need a government that truly... We thank you. The proposition rests for now.
Thank you very much for that speech. First proposition speaker from Glenmuir High School. We now call upon the first opposition speaker from Clarendon College to respond. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Good morning, adjudicators, timekeepers, and all in attendance. I am so proud to oppose a motion this House believes that senior civil servants, such as permanent secretaries, should be political appointees. Firstly, I'll just engage with some things that we heard from side proposition. With regards to their characterization, we'd like to thank them for their little exposition as well as their definitions, but we'd like to reiterate the role of senior civil servants such as permanent secretaries, which side proposition regrettably misunderstood. They are to be objective policy advisors to heads of departments and ministries, and being a political appointee taints this because political appointees have political incentives. Since they're chasing re-election, they're more likely to prioritize party interests in the short term over the long-term interests of the public, and that is extremely detrimental for countries such as Jamaica that are developing and require long-term sustainable policies. Moving on. The proposition claimed that political appointees answer to the government and to the public. We tell you that this is a blatant conflict of interest for the same reason I detailed earlier. Political appointees have they have a vested interest in political parties. They are more likely to put the interest of the party over the interest of the public, and that just manifests in bad policy or when we're weighing different policies. They tend to take the instant gratification to make the party look good, and forego any potential benefits down the line because there's no guarantee that they'll be re-elected if they are to go for those benefits that manifest down the line. Additionally, proposition would have claimed that political appointees are less responsible than career civil servants, and they gave a study seeming to support that, but they didn't mechanize as to why that is the case. And in fact, we can come with a study from the University of Chicago's Center for Effective Government that found that good management practices like effective communication and clear goals are much less when agencies are led by political appointees. Additionally, proposition would tell you that political appointees are more likely to introduce ideas aligning with the government, but we're telling you that career civil servants have more experience and thus are better able to do so. Additionally, the assumption that career civil servants don't have an understanding of the government's mandates or political priorities or the political landscape in general is just naive. And we tell you as well that their experience in these fields gives them enough understanding of the political landscape so that they can align themselves with governments. And so we get that benefit on both sides of the house, but career civil servants are uniquely beneficial because of that experience and that vested interest in the public. Additionally, the proposition would have told you that there's less bureaucracy in their world somehow, which wasn't sufficiently mechanized. But we'd also tell you that in status quo actually gives you the potential for more innovation and less bureaucracy because career civil servants know the ins and outs of the system in which they work. They have the experience over the years. They know what's wrong with the system and what actually needs to be changed and how best to do it. Moving on to our own characterization, 60% of Jamaicans believe the government has failed to rein in corruption over the last 5 years, and that just demonstrates a general mistrust of political appointees in Jamaica. Now let's talk about the role of the civil service in general, which is to advise the government on policy, implement the government policy, and function as the government's administrative machinery.
Senior civil servants, more specifically, are directly responsible for delegating, managing, and executing these roles, putting them at a unique position of responsibility for what is essentially the policy directives of the entire country, from the environment to finance to education, and the list goes on. Our side wants these roles to be filled by qualified, expert, and experienced career civil servants, while Prop wants to taint the waters by introducing parties and politics which are notoriously unreliable and corrupt. That is what is at stake in this debate. And the main issue that we've identified is the quality of the civil service, or career civil servants, or senior civil servants rather. And that is how effective they execute their role, how resistant they are to corruption, which affects how the civil service as a whole is run, and the effect of policy on the country. Burdens we've identified on proposition, but to prove that by principle or practice, showing that societal outcomes are better in the counterfactual world, and on opposition, we will demonstrate to you that status quo achieves better societal outcomes, or show that the counterfactual world provides no benefit than what we already achieve in status quo. Which leads me to my first substantive. Politically appointed senior civil servants harm impartial governance. The first warrant is that political parties generally prioritize members of their parties that are loyal to them. And so to maintain those connections and reward their loyalty, politicians award those loyal members to these senior civil service positions rather than hiring solely for merit. Example, Dr. Kassan True, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education, Skill, Youth and Information. She has years of experience, the qualifications at years of experience as a teacher, principal, and an education officer, and is an impartial senior civil servant. The outcome of this is that exclude a wide range of otherwise highly qualified career civil servants are excluded simply because they're not aligned with the ruling party. Another outcome is that these roles become places for the government to fill with connections, and thus breeds corruption and ineffective governments due to cronyism and nepotism. And the impact of this is that it undermines meritocracy, which should guide the civil service and thus fosters cronyism. The second impact is that it erodes the integrity of the civil servants, potentially discourages capable but non-partisan professionals from participating in these agencies, further exacerbating the issue of losing out on qualified individuals in props world. And the third impact of this is that lower ranking civil servants invest less into the agency because they can't attain those senior positions with the highest pay, thus reducing the quality of their work. And a study shared in the Journal of Politics found in various government agencies in the US, greater perceptions of politicization decrease federal executives' self-reported investments in expertise and increase their turnover intention. And the final impact of this is that impaired optics when government officials fill these roles with political supporters and thus undermining the civil service itself. And there are also some other derivative warrants and outcomes, which I'll outline. When forced to weigh in on policies and outcomes for the betterment of the country versus the betterment of the party, politically appointed senior civil servants are incentivized to choose that of the party. Their very livelihoods are dependent on benefiting the ruling party. And so, for example, when choosing between making the party immediately look good versus taking a difficult route that will benefit the country only in the long run, they're just likely to choose the former. And the outcome of this is that political appointees' highest goal is to validate and carry out the views of the ruling party. And this means that the welfare of the people of the country becomes a second priority in this case, and not the first. For example, a senior civil servant advising on whether to continue reducing spending in efforts to reduce debt versus using that fiscal space to bring tax cuts or increasing spending. And senior civil servants in our world would continue to reduce spending because that's best for the long-term growth of the country, while in props world, they would opt to give extra consideration to how to make the government look good by giving tax cuts. And a developing country such as Jamaica especially needs to have as first priority policies that benefit them in the long term. So what have we told you thus far?
All right, thank you. I think you're out of time.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for that speech, and apologies for assigning a different school name to your school. You are in fact Campion College, not Clarendon College. All right, so we go back now to the proposition team to hear from their second speaker, speaking now for 6 minutes.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you. Yes.
A pleasant good afternoon to all. The opposition seems to believe that the political appointees are not career civil servants. This is not so. The persons being appointed are career civil servants appointed by the Governor General, Prime Minister, and opposition leader on recommendation by the Public Service Commission. Honorable judges, esteemed opposition, and distinguished members of this House, at the heart of any thriving democracy lies the principle of accountability, where the government is responsible for enacting policies that reflect the will of the people. In Jamaica, where we face numerous challenges, the need for a responsive and accountable government is critical. Political appointees in senior roles enhance accountability and responsiveness by aligning senior civil servants with the political vision of the government. This alignment ensures that they are directly accountable to the elected administration, making certain that policies are not only reflective of the people's needs, but also executed swiftly and efficiently. Studies from the Northwestern University show that civil servants whose political views conflict with the administration's goals tend to hinder effectiveness, even leading to project delays and a 9% increase in cost overruns. In Jamaica, where resources are limited and time-sensitive, delays in executing policy means real impacts on our communities. Picture a Jamaica where the people's voices are not lost in bureaucracy, but are heard and acted upon. Political alignment in senior roles enables policies to be enacted swiftly, allowing our government to respond directly to public needs. For instance, once the Ministry of Education's permanent secretary shares the government's commitment to modernizing schools, rural students will have better resources to succeed in a changing world. This highlights the importance of senior civil servants aligning with the government's vision to ensure timely action and adequate resource allocation. In contrast, the cost of political misalignment in Jamaica has been seen before. The Cornwall Regional Hospital Rehabilitation Project highlights significant governmental inefficiency in Jamaica. Beginning in 2017, the project experienced substantial delays due to slow procurement processes and administrative hurdles. These inefficiencies led the estimated cost of rehabilitation to rise from 10.4 billion to 14.1 billion.
Speaker?
Yes.
Hello? Yes. Please pause. We just got a message from your opponents, Campion College, that they're not hearing you. So you're pausing at the point where you just mentioned $10 billion.
Okay.
And we're pausing the time. Campion College?
Hi, are we audible?
Yes, we are hearing you. Are you hearing me?
We're hearing you, yes. It was a bit choppy just a moment ago, but now it seems clear. Could you
Am I still
continue
choppy?
talking to see?
Am I still choppy at this moment?
Yeah, we're not hearing clearly on our end.
Oh my lord.
Just read a sentence of your speech and let's see if they are able to hear it.
These
Sure.
inefficiencies led the estimated cost of rehabilitation to rise from 10.4 billion.
Yeah, we're only hearing about every other word or so.
Or disconnect, come off the call, and then try to rejoin.
Okay.
Let's see if that helps.
Okay, checking now.
All right. Campion, is your camera on? If it is on, keep it off so that you can conserve on bandwidth. And then turn it on just when you're speaking, when you are delivering your presentation.
Can Campion hear me better now? Am I more fluent?
Somewhat. We might have to work with it. Or it's still a bit choppy, but we're hearing a bit better.
All right, you may resume.
Okay, these inefficiencies led the estimated cost of rehabilitation to rise from 10.4 billion to 14.1 billion, according to the Jamaica Observer. This reference shows why it is imperative for our government to be aligned and unified to avoid unnecessary loss of funds and important resources. We need politically aligned appointees in senior roles, not just for efficiency, but to uphold our commitment to a compassionate and responsive government. While political alignment in senior civil service roles ensures accountability and responsiveness, it also plays a critical role in enabling swift policy shifts, which are especially important during times of crisis. This leads me to my second point. Political appointees are essential in facilitating quick adaptations to the government's priorities, allowing the administration to respond effectively and without delay when the needs of the people are most urgent. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in an article titled Senior Civil Servants and the Importance of Policy Alignment, emphasizes that senior civil servants must support their government's goals without excessive delays. Jamaica faces unique challenges: hurricanes, economic changes, and public health crises. During these times, alignment in senior civil service roles is crucial for implementing policies rapidly and avoiding bureaucratic stalling. When aligned with the government's priorities, senior civil servants can act swiftly and effectively, particularly in moments of crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic showed us the importance of a unified government response. If senior officials share the administration's vision, they can focus immediately on delivering essential resources and measures to protect Jamaicans. Political alignment here is not about partisanship, but about a government prepared to stand with the people in action when it matters most. Reflect on the delays we faced during past crises. Without senior civil servants fully aligned with the administration, urgent health and infrastructure responses are stalled, risking lives. Political appointments are not merely about efficiency. They are about ensuring the government is primed to protect its people. Our opponents may argue that neutrality is key for professionalism. Yet neutrality without accountability can lead to inaction. Political alignment and its roles in governance and transparency, an article by the United States Agency of International Development, show that political alignment fosters transparency and can reduce corruption, ensuring that senior officials are truly answerable to the public. While confidence in appointees may fluctuate, Jamaican structures already mandate accountability, so senior civil servants must work transparently. In conclusion, appointing politically aligned civil servants is both practical and just. This approach not only ensures that policies reflect the will of the people, but also helps Jamaica's government stay prepared, cost-effective, and responsive in times of need. Every Jamaican deserves a government that not only hears them, but acts on their behalf. By aligning our senior civil service with the elected administration, we honor our democratic voice and choose a government that is dynamic, resilient, and attuned to the needs of every citizen. I thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the second opposition speaker. Was that? The second proposition speaker, rather, second proposition speaker. And now we call upon the second opposition speaker from Campion College to present their case for 6 minutes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Good afternoon. So let's talk about what we just heard from side proposition. Basically, they told us a lot of arguments, they told us a lot of articles. They said this study said this, that study said that. But what they failed to do was to mechanize their arguments. First, they led and told us that political appointees can be civil servants. We want to make something very clear, which the opposition seems to have failed from the beginning of their debate. Political appointees are those chosen by whichever person in the executive branch of the government to carry out whatever roles. This is Andrew Holness or whoever is in the head of the ministry from a particular political party, that is JLP, PNP, etc., saying, all right, I want this person to be permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education. It's not the case that we're looking towards career civil servants in the field, because these persons do not tend to be politically aligned. The civil service in general is not politically aligned. So you are not necessarily reaching towards people with experience in whichever agencies under the ministries who are not politically aligned, because they are neutral by nature and cannot be political appointees by definition. They told us that you get swifter execution of policy, etc., because these political appointees share the administration's vision and that we have better outcomes in crises, etc. Again, they didn't recognize this. There's no reason to believe that career civil servants who have years on top of years on top of years of experience working in these agencies, working in the civil service wouldn't be able to carry out these policies. In fact, because their role is advisory and helping the government execute or carry out their administrative machinery, there's no reason to believe that any opposition from them, even though they already have those years of experience under their belt, would lead to a slower execution on our side. In fact, it's what we already talked about in the first speaker's speech about you having priorities misaligned. You're incentivized to prioritize short-term interests for the party over long-term interests of the country. So that falls flat on its face. They said that there's more accountability, but as they said in their first speaker's speech, they're accountable to the government and the public. This is divided loyalty. You cannot say that, all right, I need to deliver for my party and deliver for my country. Those two considerations breed the ground for outcomes for the country. We want a civil service where senior civil servants are accountable to the public only. Their primary and only interest is to advance the welfare of Jamaicans, not their party.
Point of information.
Leading us to our first claim, politically appointed senior civil servants lead to a less efficient civil structure. So when these senior civil servants leave the civil service, we have lower ranking employees well aware of the fact that they are now reporting to someone of the dominant political party. That is someone with the power to remove them at their will or to punish their employees with the backing of the government. What do we get out of that? We get that employees are fearing retribution if they perform an action that doesn't benefit the ruling party. Whistleblowing, for example, now comes with much more serious effects than if their supervisor were not politically involved, because rather than telling my senior civil servant that I have an issue with how something is being operated in the country, I'm now telling a member of the JLP, a member of the PNP, a member of the ruling party who can use their political power to come against me. Employees in general also suppress their opinions on policy because because they don't feel as if their jobs depend on the satisfaction of their politically appointed superior. If my superior thinks that this is going to harm the party, then I'm not going to be willing to share my opinion on this matter. This creates an atmosphere that stifles critical thinking and innovation because the challenging the party's status quo to benefit the country brings about disrupting power. We have more information being withheld from the public because of this fear and retribution, which reduces transparency and public trust. I'll quickly take a point. All right, politically appointed civil servants rotate with each new administration because ruling parties want to install officials who keep with their agenda. This is further to the point about the inefficiency of the civil service. So what do we have? We have agencies with the additional responsibility of needing to manage new leadership transitions and spend time introducing this new senior civil servant to the workings of this administration or this agency. We have to adjust the changes in priorities, and this is occurring every 4 to 5 years when a new government is installed. This means that employees will have poor trust in these newly installed leaders as they lack the extensive knowledge and experience in that particular agency or department that senior civil servants in status quo possess. You can have someone like Dr. Kasanchu, who was previously, before becoming permanent secretary, she was a teacher, she was a principal, she was a chief education officer, she was a regional education officer, etc. She has years on top of years of experience, as opposed to a political appointee who is just put into the office without that years of experience in that particular sector. We also get policies changing with each administration, disrupting the continuity of government programs. So for example, in the United States, after Bill Clinton attained successive surpluses, the next administration used that space to change its policies and do worse things for the country. That's what we'll get in Proposition's world. From that, we see fragmentation in policy and good policy positively impacting the country being discontinued. Then, politically appointed senior civil servants also lead to more corruption, because out of that, we lack the filter of things like qualification and experience because these corrupt figures are more likely to be hired. Under our world, we have career civil servants giving up a significant part of their life to serve their country and have been vetted by these government organizations. While in Pop's world, these same filters don't exist because political appointees who they claim to be perfect for the job are installed rather than these career civil servants. Again, just a point before they point out again. Political appointees need not be vetted by the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission is dealing with these career civil servants who are being put in status quo. Political appointees is me saying, all right, my name is Andrew Holness, I'm putting Vega Williams in the Ministry of Finance. That is what political appointees refers to. So out of that corruption, we get the promotion of and carrying execution of policies working against citizens. And we have these corrupt civil servants at the top of the runner hiring corruptly because they're going to put their best friends, their cronies in the civil servants, in the civil service.
You are out of time. Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to now move to our cross-questioning section. So this section will entail each team asking the other team questions, beginning with the opposition team, Campion College. So you get 5 minutes on the clock to ask questions, each lasting for no longer than 20 seconds. And those questions will be asked of your opponents within your high school. And then they will get to respond to each question within 45 seconds. All right. So with that said, hoping that I think by now you've gotten the hang of it. So we know place 5 minutes on the clock and invite you to start with your first question. Campion College.
How are we getting identical outcomes for society if these politically appointed civil service now have to consider their party loyalties and party interests rather than solely that of the country?
Could you please repeat the question? You're not very clear.
Sure. Am I clear? Okay. How are we getting identical outcomes for society if these politically appointed civil servants now have to consider party interests and party priorities rather than solely that of the country?
So what you're not understanding is, or what you fail to understand, is that this is the current system that is in place. The system that is in place is that these persons are appointed on recommendation from the Public Service Commission and approved by the Governor General and by the Prime Minister and leader of opposition. So these persons, it is not necessary to say that these persons will be.
It is not the case where a particular party chooses someone to work in this politically appointed place. No, opposition, Governor General, and the Prime Minister, along with the recommendation of the Public Service Commission, chooses these persons and deem them necessary to operate in the respective positions in alignment with what the public voted for. This is not about parties, it's about the the people. You are under the misconception that, oh, JLP or PNP choose someone. No, this is right across the board.
Okay, thank you. Your time has ended to respond. Go ahead, Campion, with your next question.
You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't claim that they'll be more aligned because they're politically appointed while also claiming that they'll be elected in this sort of split decision between both parties. So there won't be this sort of political bias.
So how do you contend with that?
We can say that. The reason being, these politically appointed persons are chosen because they align with what the public voted for. The public voted for the government. So, for example, if the current Prime Minister says, okay, I want to modernize our schools. No, the politically appointed person, for example, the Secretary for the Ministry of Education, that politically appointed person is working in the alignment of what the government said. Okay, we're modernizing schools. That is the main focus of that politically appointed person, not JLP, not PNP. That is their mission. You are under the misconception that they are working for the political parties. No, they are appointed because the government and opposition and Governor General seems it fit that they can work towards this goal. Upon the recommendation again by the Public Service Commission.
So these are not random people off the street.
Exactly.
These are already civil servants.
Exactly.
Okay.
Why would the government appoint someone who does not align with their party's interests if the government is incentivized to advance their own interests?
Okay, so what we are saying is that once an administration is elected, or once a particular, for example, prime minister or senate is elected, these persons have been elected on the basis that the people of Jamaica, they agree with the mandate that they have put forth, they agree with the promises that they have put forth, and so they're therefore giving consent to the government to employ or to put in place persons who are able to, you know, advance the mandate that they have put forth, which was basically approved by the Jamaican people. So what we are saying is that they are not going to put someone who is not politically aligned with them. It's not necessarily referring to party alignment, but it's referring to mindset alignment. It's referring to persons who are willing to change, persons who are willing to adapt, persons who are willing to innovate, persons who have new perspectives. Because when a new person goes into position, there's a new perspective. So what we're saying is that
Campion College, do you have another question?
Okay, we had about 2 minutes of analysis on why making them politically appointed would undermine meritocracy, and that would lead to like political apathy. How do you contend with that argument?
could you repeat, please? You weren't fully clear. That was a bit choppy.
Okay, we had 2 minutes of analysis on why politically appointing them would undermine meritocracy, and that would lead to more worker apathy, which would decrease productivity. How do you contend with that argument?
Politically appointed career senior civil servants are people the government opposition leader, the governor general, the public service commission deems necessary to push what the people had voted for. Therefore, again, we reiterate that this is not about party. This is not about what the JLP or what the PNP wants or needs or their own feelings, what they want. No, it's about the people. The government put them into place because they believe that after all the vigorous testing and interviewing, this is the person who will fulfill this role properly. If we choose a police commissioner, this man is going to push what the government said. Okay, we're going to lower the crime rate. This man will do that. This is not about party. Put the concept of party out of your mind. It's not about party, it's about people.
And it is based on merit.
Exactly. This is why their career senior civil
I think
servants.
you're out of time in terms of yes. Response time has in fact elapsed. Thank you very much, and that concludes the period of questions posed from Campion College to Glenmuir. And now we flip it and ask Glenmuir to ask your series of questions within 5 minutes for to Campion College.
Okay, when in the second speaker, he rebutted what my second and first speaker said. So I asked, are you aware that according to the Constitution of Jamaica, Section 81, Regulation 17, that politically appointed senior civil servants have to be recommended by the Public Service Commission, approved by the Governor General, Prime Minister, and Opposition Leader. Therefore, they are not.
Random people aren't choosing them. The Public Service Commission are recommending these people based on merits.
Okay, that's it for the question. Campion, are you able to provide a response?
Right, so you're describing status quo. You're telling us about what the Constitution says and what already happens presently in society. That's status quo. That's what opposition is arguing. You are burdened to argue that political appointees in a world where this house believes that instead of being how they're appointed currently, they should be political appointees. Again, by definition, someone appointed by some member of the executive branch, the prime minister, cabinet, etc. Political appointees in your world are not career civil servants confirmed by the Governor General and put in by the Public Service Commission. They're who Andrew Holness, who Mark Golding, whoever is the dominant in power, saying, all right, this is who I want to head the civil service.
If senior civil servants are career appointees rather than political appointees, how can you ensure that their loyalty lies with the public's current choice rather than their own entrenched views?
I'm sorry, could the question be repeated? We didn't hear that.
If senior civil servants are career appointees rather than political appointees, how can you ensure that their loyalty lies with the public's current choice rather than their own entrenched views?
So the question of loyalty is something that opposition side has to contend with. We've already spoken about how loyalties are divided between party and the country. In fact, it is the experience of these senior civil servants in opposition's world that gives them the ability to innovate, gives them the ability to understand what's wrong with the country. We don't have entrenched views on our side, and even if we did, those entrenched views give mountains on top of mountains of experience in how to address these policy issues that face Jamaica today. In proposition's world, the loyalty question is not entrenched views versus the country, it's political parties, political loyalties appointed by the government being divided between those governments who appointed them and the country itself.
Okay, so we have not necessarily heard how the side opposition plans to amend the system that is currently in place. So I would like to know how you plan to amend that, and also how do you propose that we ensure that persons elected to serve are based on merit and not on popularity, if the process of electing senior civil servants is largely dependent on their peers?
I'm so sorry, we didn't hear. Could that be repeated, please? And the time pause.
Okay. So we are saying that we have not heard, or you have not stated the amendment to the system, or so we would like for you to explain how you plan to amend the system to better benefit the country, and of course how would you propose that we ensure that persons are elected how do you ensure that these persons are elected to serve based on merit and not based on popularity? Okay, let me rephrase, apologies. How do you propose that we ensure that persons are elected to serve based on merit and not on popularity, if the process of electing senior civil servants is largely dependent on their peers?
Okay, that's not an issue that's faced on our side of the house, but rather on yours. Because of the political alignment of individuals, that's where you have that sort of popularity contest, the cronyism, the nepotism. That's in proposition's world. However, in our world, in status quo already, we see that these career civil servants are already vetted. They already have these years of experience, these qualifications. We've already told you, we gave the example of Dr. Hassan Troop and many, many more career civil servants who have that experience. You guys have not mechanized to us why there needs to be like this drastic change in the way we vet these individuals, because they're already bringing us these positive outcomes. We already showed you that their experience and meritocracy exists in our world. So there is no need to make amendments to status quo.
How would you address the risk of bias if long-standing civil servants hold personal political opinions that influence their work, given that their actions could subtly affect government policy?
Could you repeat, please?
How would you address the risk of bias if long-standing civil servants hold personal political opinions that influence their work, given that their actions could subtly affect government policy?
Okay. So these career civil servants have been in the civil service for how many years? It's people that have experience in the civil service. So it's not necessarily the case that we're going to see, oh, I am of the opposing party, or I align with the opposing party, and therefore I'm going to sabotage the government. In fact, the whole point of them rising to this rank of senior civil servant and having this experience means that they've shown previously that they're willing to advance the government policy, because that's their job. And if they fail to perform that, then they can easily be removed in either of the worlds. So the outcome that you're describing is just not something we see. We fail to see where you get that from, and you haven't mechanized that. We, in fact, get better execution of policy in the world because we have the experience necessary.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks to both teams for that period of questions and answers. We are now going to pause for 1 minute to allow you to catch your breath, gather your thoughts, make some final touches to your reply speeches. At the end of the 1 minute, we will resume with the reply speaker from Team Campion College Opposition for 5 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes on the clock as well for the Proposition's reply speaker, Team team, Glenmore High School. Your 1 minute rather begins now. All right, so your 1 minute has elapsed, and now we call upon the reply speaker from Team Opposition, Campion College.
Okay, wait, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Wait, can somebody start me? Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. When you want a surgery, you hire a trained surgeon who has gone through the process of medical school, received certification, and has learned the intricacies of the human body, how it works, and how to operate on it. We do the same thing when we hire mechanics, investors, and plumbers. We hire expert trained members who have had the experience in their field. During this debate, Prop has tried and failed to convince us to hire unqualified and inexperienced workers who earn their positions through connections and nepotism, except this time, it isn't something as frivolous as a surgery. It is in the highest positions of our country. 3 things in this speech. 1, a summary of this debate. 2, an analysis of the main clashes. And 3, a justification for why we've won. Okay. First, okay, wait. But first, what are the main issues? There were 3 main issues identified in this debate. 4 main issues. One of them was the definition of political appointees. The next one was the quality of senior civil servants. The next one was the efficiency of senior civil servants. And the 4th one was corruption. Okay. So for the definition of political appointees, they attempted to, for the definition of political appointees, they attempted to defend status quo. They said that the Governor General would get a name from the Public Service Commission, which is made up of equal parts JLP and PMP, and they said that this is the political appointees in which they're defending. But however, this isn't political appointments because it isn't done by anyone. It isn't made up of, because you're appointing people based on an elected body, and it isn't actually made up of people in the executive, which is what their side has to defend in this motion. That's what a political appointee actually is, and this point already locks them out of the debate because they misunderstood their side of the motion that they were defending. And Mr. Speaker, you'll see that this is a common theme among all of their arguments. The second point of contention was impartial governance versus alignment. What did proposition say? We said that they, what did proposition say? They said that they didn't prioritize impartial governance. Instead, they baselessly claimed that purpose and policy would move in unison under their side. They said that understanding policies would allow them to execute this mandate. And we POI'd this and we said that it would be stagnant, and they sort of brought up an impact of innovation. Now, as a direct reply to this point, we said that this is precisely the opposite. We said that it is their understanding of the status quo that enables them to actually be able to change it, the understanding of the senior civil servants under our side. Prop is burdened with mechanizing why senior civil servants are actually intrinsically going to move in unison with the government, which they still haven't done. And we provided an even if argument. We said that even if they were to move in unison with the government, what we get under our side is more effective and efficient policy due to familiarity with the senior civil service position and with how policy is actually created and carried out. And we said that there's less corruption due to the passing of multiple filters, and we talked about more efficient workers due to meritocracy, encouraging members to not stay at the same level but aim for promotions. Okay, so what was our argument under this clash? we said that political parties prioritize those loyal to them. So if given the chance, they'll use senior civil servants position as a way to reward these loyalties. This would lead to less qualified senior civil servants, undermines the meritocracy of workers, which would lead to worker apathy, and a lower quality of work because no longer do people strive for these positions. And we said that this worsens the optics for a proposition, which further drives out potentially qualified civil servants who would aim for those positions. Furthermore, we looked at this through the perspective of policy. We talked about long-term policy and short-term policy. We said that their side prioritizes short-term policy that could harm long-term outcomes for the country, and we pointed this out in things like fiscal responsibility. Perhaps only reply to this point was that political appointees would be career civil servants. As we said before, this is a misunderstanding of the motion. You can't have but even if we accept this understanding of the motion, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that they're going to be rule breakers outside of the system who are able to actually create and implement these new policies aligned with the government, while also claiming that they're career civil servants who are accustomed with that sort of thing. And we win this point on magnitude and time frame. Okay, now efficiency. What did proposition say? They mentioned inefficiency within our point, and they didn't really mechanize why this would be the case. Our reply to this is that it's naive to assume that senior civil servants don't have political understanding, given that these are the highest positions in all of civil service. And even if we granted this motion, political appointees typically don't have the managerial experience, and they would have to be substituted out, which would lead to more inefficiency. Under our argument, we made the point that politically appointed civil servants or senior civil servants lead to less efficient civil servant structure, and we said that lower civil servants understand that they're reporting somebody with a political allegiance, and this would lead to things like a reduction in whistleblowing and suppression of the opinion, which stifles innovation. Furthermore, we looked at it long term. We said that when a new administration comes into power, appointees, in conclusion, we win on magnitude, scope, and probability. We mechanized all our points. We talked about why corruption would be worse on the other side and why.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that speech. We now conclude our debate with the presentation from the proposition reply speaker, Glenmuir High School rather.
One moment, please. We're just using technical issues.
Is the mic on? Am I being heard clearly?
Yes, you are being heard.
Lovely. Mr. Speaker, this government commends the valiant attempt of the opposition in trying to deny the moot, one that could fundamentally change how our current political system works. Because as we said multiple times, there's a version of political appointments already in place in Jamaica. However, they fail to address a critical issue, trust. The Australian and New Zealand School of Government, the relationship between ministers and appointed officials depends significantly on mutual respect, openness, and the capacity of officials to understand and respond to political dynamics effectively. When these aspects are present, the relationship tends to be more productive, leading to better collaboration and policy outcomes, because as Jamaicans, we want better implementation of policy for the betterment of our people. I move on. Other sources suggest that fostering these relationship factors, trust, respect, transparency, which is necessary, can indeed improve the cooperative dynamics between ministers and appointees, potentially validating the argument that political appointees in senior roles could foster closer trust-based relationships in ministers. Imagine Ministers need senior civil servants they can trust, not a team second guessing their every move. Political appointees bring that critically needed loyalty. They are handpicked because they share the government's vision, not because of party alignment, and that means stronger relationships built on mutual goals, not hidden agendas, not what our opposition seems to believe about party alignment. No. Imagine our Prime Minister trying to make real change, but the so-called team he is trying to work with is dragging their feet. That's what happens when senior civil servants aren't on board with government goals. Political appointees, however, bring cooperation, not conflicts. They bring loyalty, not mistrust. They understand the policy, the vision, and they are committed to seeing it through. The government doesn't need constant roadblocks, and they're committed to seeing it through. The government doesn't need constant roadblocks. It needs trusted allies who will be with, not against the agenda voters choose for. Mr. Speaker, to remind you why this proposition is completely and utterly correct in our stance agreeing with the mood, my first speaker laid the foundation of our argument to the fact that the system the mood speaks of is already in place with the mention of the Constitution of Jamaica, Section 81, Regulation 17, noting that the political appointment process ensures that senior civil servants share the government's vision, mission, and goal, leading to swifter policy implementation, which our second speaker enforced, noting that without this, it leads to government ineffectiveness. Also, Constitution, the government demands regular reports on active personnel, leading to governmental accountability. Following the government in agreeing to fulfilling the policies the government said they would, it leads to public accountability. My first speaker also mentioned the appointment of political appointees is opening doors to innovative ideas. Mr. Speaker, pass the laptop.
There is an issue with our device.
Hello, proposition reply, are you there?
Hello. Could you give us one moment, please, on the issue with our device?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, could you give us one moment, please, on an issue with our device?
Okay, all right, pause the time.
Apologies.
Kalisa, can you give us an indication as to how much time is on the clock?
They have 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. She has 1 minute to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay. Continuing. The third opposition speaker raised the point of corruption. However, corruption is not exclusive to political appointees. However, the Jamaican media, Jamaican media, internal audits, and other private watchdogs group all work together to expose corruption in the public sector. Inefficiency was also raised, but again, the proposition raises that political appointees are needed because inefficiency comes from misalignment in government. Also, it seems that our opposition is stuck on the point of political appointees and what it means. However, Jamaica uses a version of what other countries uses, not the exact replica. Our second opposition speaker seemed to be utterly incorrect. As mentioned by our first speaker, according to the Constitution 81, Regulation 17, the senior civil servant has to be recommended by multiple parties. The Public Service Commission, who involves rigorous testing and interviewing, then the appointment and approval of the Governor General, government, and opposition. So we, the opposition, still stand firm in the notion that conflict of interest and moving party aligned isn't really the main stance of conflict. Also, it renders their contention of the definition of political alignment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thanks to all the debaters in this match. We will now leave to deliberate, and we will return with the results momentarily.
Speaker.
Hello, everyone. Are you hearing me? Are you seeing me?
Yes, indeed, Jermaine.
All right. Thank you so very much. All right. So this was very, very interesting. We very much enjoyed this, and I think both teams have every reason to be proud. This is a high stakes match. Of course, you're semi-finalists, and so it was demonstrative of the fact that you really did some thorough research and detailed analysis. But alas, only one team will advance. The team that advances will advance on 284 points to the team whose journey ends here. They end with 270 points. Yes. Now let's assess the major issues for us as a panel in this debate. The first question is the commitment of Team Glenmuir High School to essentially the status quo, which is to say, what obtains now is that there will be a vacancy in the senior civil service. The vacancy is somehow engaged with by the Public Service Commission. Candidates are vetted. There's some throughput of the selected candidate to the political directorate, who then ultimately signs off on it and confirms. Yes, that's more or less what obtains in the status quo. They say essentially that they are committing to this at various points in the speeches and fairly strongly, concretely in the reply speech. Yes, the status quo, what a model such as that which we're defending exists, that's what we're standing for. They contend that this model is consistent with a process of political appointment. Yes, and that's their interpretation. Of course, Campion disagrees and disagrees vehemently. Campion tells us that political appointment necessary implies several outcomes. So they stress a lot of the outcomes, and they say, in as much as what obtains right now don't present those outcomes, those harmful outcomes, like, for example, corruption and manipulation, and sort of adherence or allegiance to political directives that may not be the wisest or prudent for the public at large. All of those kinds of harms, they say, exist in the status quo, exist in the world of Glenmuir, but they don't exist, certainly not as much in the status quo, with the status quo's model. Glenmuir says that a lot of the things that they're trying to push against are the things that sort of sound to us like what Campion is agitating in some respects against. So they say that the kinds of slow, tedious processes by which the public service and the senior public servants operate, the fact that politicians are elected with a mandate, but that mandate sometimes is obstructed by senior civil servants, but those particular concerns are a major hindrance to the public good being achieved. Yes? And so this is a part of what Glenmuir is solving for, but again, Glenmuir is holding to the same model that exists in the here and now today, in the status quo. We found that this is problematic without even engaging with how Campion treats with that. We found it's problematic on two fronts. Firstly, on a technical kind of debater front, motions that propose this house believe or this house would are usually from propositions vantage point, highlighting problems that exist in the status quo and also implicitly proposing changes to the status quo such that what proposition is standing for, defending, ought to be distinctly different or meaningfully different from that which obtains right now. So it's problematic on that front where Glenmuir holds to the status quo, holds to what obtains right now, the model, the process by which senior civil servants are appointed, and saying that's what we're holding to. It's kind of incongruous with how it is that the rules of debate really apply. Secondly, as well, we felt that, and this is now engaging a lot of the response from Campion. We felt that Campion's sort of outright challenging of the status quo as being in conformity with political appointments, we felt that it left a bit to be desired. What would have been nice is if Campion probably could have presented to us some model of a political appointment that illustrates a core principle. And I give you an example just for your learning. For example, in the United States president engages in a process of political appointments for his cabinet. It obtains as well in Jamaica, where the cabinet is politically appointed, right? The US president has, for all intents and purposes, the entire US population from which he or she can select. Yes? But then having selected this person, that person isn't confirmed, then there's another tier at which that person goes to be vetted and ultimately confirmed by the Congress of the United States. Are we then appreciating from an example like this, if it is that's the kind of example that would work with in Campion's world for a definition of political appointment, is that then the principle there that the starting point for selection must be with the politician? If that's the case, then we think that Glenmuir's model, defense of which is the model that Glenmuir is defending, which is the status quo, which they contend is an example of political appointment, then would not fall, would not stand the test that I've just described. But unfortunately, Campion doesn't give that. Campion hearkens to a lot of the outcomes, and they say, well, the outcomes exist only in a world where there is a political appointment. They tell us, though, Campion does, that almost fairly assertively and strongly that a politically appointed person is somebody who is appointed by the politician with little to no engagement by an independent body like a public service commission. They tell us that, but we wanted to hear beyond that kind of fairly, assertive position, how it is that is actually true, why that is actually true. So we're not declaring that particular challenge to be in favor of Campion or that team. This is just for your learning as you advance in debating. What we think was a major concern, a rather major issue that helped to sway the debate one way or the other, was the question about exactly what are we solving for? We're solving for, as Glenmuir puts it, we're solving for a world where politicians have their mandates frustrated oftentimes by the civil service bureaucracy and senior civil servants at large. And that in the world of Glenmuir does an injustice to the people of the country who wants to see their mandate expressed through the politician and their engagement and their selection of people, competent persons who are able to implement the mandate of the people. Two bits of meaningful response, useful responses from Campion College. Campion tells us that the civil service and the civil servant and the senior civil servants at large are tasked with doing something that necessarily requires a separation of their role from the role of the politician. They are technocrats. And so Campion tells us that it is not truthful that they exist to styve and to frustrate the political agenda. They exist to ensure that the government apparatus as a whole, which entails the political directive and the civil servants working together, that they are effectively a check and balance on political excesses, right? And so they never, I don't recall Campion, I can't recall at this time Campion giving us an example to show how that really works, but we felt that the explanation of it was quite good, nevertheless. So I think on that point, we think that it swings to Campion College in terms of the clarity of the message. Okay? All right. Then the next thing is the question about the harms that will come about. Campion tells us that there are some fundamental harms that will come about in the world being posited by Glenmuir High School. They say that there's going to be corruption. They say that the politician is going to have a controlling influence over the bureaucracy of the public service, which is harmful, which effectively, and they say to us as well that we really can't trust politicians always to be to be minded to do things in accordance with the will of the people. Politicians are human beings, and once elected into power, they sometimes take advantage of the people's tendency not to be overly scrutinizing. And so with reducing, with eliminating that crucial check on the system, then the politician gets their way. And that, they say, is harmful. Glenmuir tells us that that is actually helpful, that actually helps with the achievement of the mandate of the people through their political operatives, through the execution of the senior civil servant. We think that Campion's analysis on this particular point is particularly nuanced and particularly good. And so again, we give that particular point to Campion College. Again, I just end with this point. The fact that Glenmuir hinges their argument on a defense of the status quo, not only is it problematic in terms of how debates work, but it's also problematic in as much as they're trying to achieve some ends that aren't being achieved in the status quo in the world as it exists right now. So the question arose in our minds, and we contemplated it significantly during the deliberation. What then is the change that Glenmuir is positing to what obtains right now, such that we think there could be an achievement of the ends that they're trying to achieve, even if it is that we don't buy yet into Campion's world that says those ends are actually harmful themselves. And so that said, ladies and gentlemen, and the score is in mind, 284 to 270 points. The team that advances to the grand finals of the JCSA, that's the Jamaica Civil Service Association's high school debate competition for 2024, the team that is one step closer to the championship is Campion College. Congratulations, Campion College, and well tried, Glenmuir High School.
Thank you for having us here, and congratulations to Campion. We are looking forward to watching that last final debate. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Very charitable. Thank you. Campion, you want to say anything else to your former nemesis, now friends?
Thank you so much for a great match. It was a wonderful debate. Thank you so much, guys, and to all the judges as well.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So we will get back to you. I see Glenmuir just left, but we'll get back to you as it relates to how we will proceed with the third place winners, whether we'll have a third place match or whether we will actually use the scores to make that determination.
And
of course, yes.
Mr. Barrett, I have some
Yes.
wonderful news.
Oh, you do?
I do have some wonderful news. So Glenmuir will indeed be witnessing Campion College and Manning School in the last match, because they will be invited to play off for the third place title. Next week, Monday, November 18th, we will be having the third place playoffs and grand finals of this wonderful competition. So yes, indeed, Jermaine, we'll be having a face-to-face physical third place playoffs right before the grand finals match.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Ravon. I think that puts a smile on Glenmuir's face, albeit they're not here right now. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. See you all on Monday for a scintillating 2 matches, third place playoff and the grand finals. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.